All right, guys, so now we're going to do the featured properties, and this is completely optional. I just think it fills out the home page a little better. So we're just going to have two differently formatted cards above the recent properties for featured properties. And this would be a good way to maybe make some money. You could have people pay you to put the listings featured on the home page in addition to the random properties we have here. All right, now we want to go to the database, and I've already changed two of the properties to have this is featured flag, which you should already have in there, and it's false by default, but I changed two of them to true. This modern downtown studio and what was the other one? The cozy downtown loft. So just pick two and set is featured to true either through Compass or you can do it through Atlas through the browser. All right, so now we're going to start off by creating the API route. So let's go to App, API, Properties. Now you could use this API/properties and maybe add in a flag, but there's already enough going on here with the pagination and stuff, so I think we should just create a separate route. So in Properties, I'm going to create a folder called Featured, so that way you can just go to, API Properties Featured, and then in here we want to create our route.js, and I'm going to just copy from Properties route.js, I'm going to copy both the get function and the imports, and we'll paste that in here. But it's going to be much simpler. We don't need get session user or cloudinary. Let's say /featured, and then we don't need any of this pagination stuff. We just want to get the properties. We don't need the limit or skip, but we do want in this object here, we're going to say where is featured. We want to set that, or not set that, but find where that is equal to true. All right, and then we don't need this result because we're going to send the properties back directly. So just change that to properties. All right, so that should do it as far as the endpoint goes. So let's close that up, and now let's go into the components folder, and we're going to create a featured properties, plural, .jsx file, and then RAFCE. Okay, and wait, what's going on here? I put two dots. Yeah, we'll do that, and then okay, and then I'm going to bring this into the home page because that's where we want to show it. So let's go to app and then go to page.jsx, and let's bring in featured properties, and then we're going to put it right above the home properties. All right, so we should just see the text here. Now I'm going to go to the theme files, the index.html, and we should have this section here that's labeled featured properties. So we want to grab that whole section, copy that, and then let's put that into we want to put that into the featured properties right here. Let's replace this. And let's change all the classes to class name. Okay, and now it's going to show this. So this is obviously just hard-coded HTML, where ultimately we want to make this a component called featured property card. So we're going to do that in the next video. Right now I just want to make sure we can fetch the data from the route that we just created. Now, there's a few ways we could do this. We could create a completely new request, or we could utilize the utils request.js and then this right here, this fetch properties. So why don't we pass in an object, and inside that we can have this show featured, which if it's true, then we can show only the featured properties. So let's set that to false by default, and then set this to an empty object by default. Because if we don't do this, if we just call fetch properties without passing it in, then we're going to get an error. So let's do that, and then all we have to change, if this happens to be true, is the endpoint, because then we'll want to get /featured. So let's just go right here, and let's add, we'll say if show featured, then we're going to add on to this endpoint /featured. Else, then just nothing. All right, so save that, and the home page uses this function, and you can see that that's still working. So now let's go back into featured properties and let's bring in that function. So we're going to import fetch properties from the utils, and then here let's say const properties, set that to, actually we need to await, so we need to put async here and then await fetch properties. And yeah, I think it should be good. So let's console log properties. Now this is going to be down the server because this is a server rendered component, and you can see we get the seaside retreat. If we look at the is featured, oh, okay, so right now it's still getting all of them, but we can pass in our option of show featured, set that to true, and now let's reload, and then if we look down here again, and now it should be only, yep, is featured true, and there should be two of them. So that's that one, and then we have this one. Okay, so we know that we're fetching the properties. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the featured property card component so we can pass all this stuff into it and make this dynamic data.